Hey everyone, I'm back in Amsterdam, but I think that's obvious given the toque, I'm very, very cold. Welcome back to another recap. This is round 7 of my tournament in Portugal. And today, after the win from yesterday, very nice win, I'm playing a 22-56 from India. This is my 3rd chess player that I play from him in India in the same tournament in Portugal of all places. And as always, we have some lessons learned at the very end of this video. We have 5 lessons learned for this game, and I hope you enjoy them as well. So I come in with the white pieces. My opponent is known to play e6 for most of his career, so I'm very, very anticipatory of that. I prepare 5 hours at the night and I play e4, and you know what happens. No e6, but in fact a c6 comes. I'm very cold. And also I'm very pissed. This happens 5 times in the tournament in which my opponents do not play their first move against me. I guess word has gotten out that I prepare against my opponents, but on c6, I don't know if you remember, but in the Amsterdam chess tournament, c6 was played against me in the last round and I played d4, and on d5, I played what I had prepared for the first time ever, which was knight c3. And on takes, I took here. Then my opponent played knight f6, which I didn't know at the time. Usually the first best move here is bishop f5. To which I play like knight g3 and so on and so on. But knight f6 was played again here. So I knew that my opponent was using the game from the Amsterdam Chess Open to play this against me and prepare, really. So I take, as I did in Amsterdam, and I learned from my mistakes. So in Amsterdam, I think I played bishop f4, which is really a big inaccuracy. In the Amsterdam Chess Open, my opponent after the game told me that it's actually better to just play c3, bishop d3, queen c2, and then castle long, and then attack the opponent. My opponent played bishop d6, and then I developed with bishop d3, bishop e6, so just really good development. I have a bishop stationed on d3, eyeing that h7 square, bishop e6, and then I go with bishop e3. And this is a minute error. Instead, I should go with queen c2 and then knight e2. And this is what we learn later on in the game, why bishop e3 is not that good. So queen c7, knight e2. The very simple answer to why knight f3 is not good is because my knight basically has no future on f3. So knight e2 ensures that my knight has some future, maybe a future knight f4 if it's possible, knight g3. So h5 was played here. Now I take a lot of time for this move because I'm super worried. Like, what if h4, what if h3, what if I go h3 here and then just bishop d5 things? I just don't like anything about this position. So I go with queen c2, just ignoring it all. But there's also c4, which is quite interesting, and the engine presses for me to do this. You see, c4 is a space-taking move. And so on c5 by them, then we can go d5 and get extra space, kill this bishop, you know, bishop d7, and now I can go like a3. And here the white pieces are doing very, very well. But no, I go queen c2 to maybe develop and castle long in the future. So after knight d7, f4, huge mistake here. But we'll learn why it is bad by the feel of this position that's going to come up. After castles, and then my opponent plays rook h e8. This is the moment that I low-key thought that my opponent was cheating. I was thinking my opponent was cheating here just on the grounds of they were playing so fast in the opening. Like, he played this in less than 20 seconds, and it's such a good move because it aims at just all my weaknesses here. I'm not accusing my opponent whatsoever of cheating. I'm just paranoid at this point because of the climate of the world that we are in the chess world, of which, you know, it happens so much online. He was taking 30 seconds to a minute for each move and then immediately going up of his chair as if he knew everything about the position. It seemed very, very odd to me, and I was skeptical. So, rook h e8. Now we see why f4 is such a weakness. My 2 pieces here look super extremely weak. And now I try to look at what my opponent is threatening, which is bishop takes a2, bishop g4, all attacking my bishop, my knight, and then even maybe the pawn on f4. And now I get very, very scared. This was played in 30 seconds, but I end up taking a lot of time for this move because it's game deciding. How do I stop bishop g4 here? Let's say I defend this pawn on a2 with king b1, right? By the way, this could never be played before because I have b3 and then the bishop is trapped. This is a famous trap. So now that rook HE8 was played, the bishop taking is actually threatened because of my bishop that's not defended. So here, if I defend the pawn, I saw this in the game, reminder, takes, and then rook here, and I lose a pawn. The best move, says the engine, and this is why I hate the engine, because it's not realistic. The human would never do this. Bishop F2. Simply giving a pawn with check, which is just not, it's not okay to do that. But look at my options. If I defend the bishop with queen d2, which I thought of, bishop takes a2, and I don't have b3 things anymore, it's just black is up a full pawn, and then an attack ensues with like queen a5, bishop e3, even threatening checkmate. So we don't love these things. What if I go bishop back to d2, still defending f4 twice? Well, here there's bishop g4 attacking my knight twice, and the second I defend my knight, bishop takes knight, rook takes, rook trades, and basically the knight was a defender on the pawn on f4, and once it's removed, black just obtains a pawn up. So at this point, I'm like shivering, like I'm scared that it's already lost after 12 moves. What am I gonna do? So I find this very, very dubious resource. Of course it's bad, says the engine. King d2. Defends my bishop and is the only move that still defends this pawn as well. And here I was like sure that after bishop g4, it's like completely over. I knew that king d2 was bad. Like bishop g4 and say goodbye to your position. If I defend the pawn here that's threatened, I just think that this is just super secure and super winning. Doubling the rooks on the weakness. Yeah. My opponent plays super fast. Oh no, he doesn't. Oh, he actually takes 11 minutes for this. Knight b6, but knight b6 aims for this square, aims for bishop for knight d5, and I think this is about when I was like, no, he's not cheating at all. So I go with g3. The aim of g3 is to absolutely defend this, and that now on bishop g4, like I'm not worried about, you know, defending my knight or defending the f4 pawn. I'm just chill. This gives a beautiful knight c4 check, which forces me to take this knight, obviously, but after bishop takes, it's really hard to recuperate this because black has this. What? King takes, rook e8. Oh my lord. He didn't see that. He played g6 instead. I guess he was scared of on bishop g4. Now that he moved his knight to b6, I have a bishop f5 check, which forces the trade. But here black just has king b8 and is completely winning. Like taking this bishop doesn't do much because of knight c4 check. Beautiful, beautiful. g6 is a useless move that really gives me just time to bring my bishop back out of the badness of it all. Check, king c1, bishop d5 attacking my rook, rook he1, and now I'm saving the position. Like there's nothing that black can do that's immediately winning. Queen a5, it all looks very scary. And here actually I miss a tactic, and so does my opponent. I play b3. Black to play and win in this position. Be creative with it. Pause the video to solve. Here black has bishop a3 check. That's an obvious move, right? Forces my king. But now the rebuttal is knight b2, which is sick. Forking these two pieces, and wherever my rook goes, the more priority piece to move, knight takes, and whatever takes back here on d3 just ensues with bishop e4 and guarantees black with an advantage here. So that was very, very sad. But b3, my opponent played knight e3, so we just trade pieces, and I go knight g1 in this position. Black has an upper hand in this position because they can double rooks before I can even secure anything. And let's say something like queen d2 doesn't work at all, because after the trade here, I do win the file, yes, but at what cost? Queen takes a2, and I'm absolutely losing in this position. So here I have to trade at once on e3, and then I play king d2, and this time, king d2 is a great move, because now I'm forcing the rook out of my position, out of e3, and then I can contest the file with the last dominant black piece. And basically what we've learned here is that when your opponent is attacking you and they're winning, trade off their attacking pieces so that they're reduced with almost nothing. And after rook d8, I go knight e2, c5 to open things up, and now I'm still in a rush, but I'm not losing, you know? Here I thought of a very sexy move, b4. And the idea is on takes, I would have like c4 and then just march all my pieces towards them. But then I saw b3 check on the king. attacking my queen with that pawn. My queen is forced to move up, and then bishop b4 would win, right? So I don't have this, but then I do have this. So I missed that on takes. I don't have c4, although I thought that b4 is really, really good originally. I have c takes b4 check, which is really nice. And then queen c7, I would have like trading queens. And here I'm doing okay. The reason why b4 would be so strong is that if you move the queen immediately, like I'm winning. So it's like a forcing move. But yeah, c5, I didn't like what I saw that was bad. So I went back to c1, king b8 to open up the c file on my dumbfounded queen and king on c2, c1, king b1 to go back, and then my opponent goes with rook c8, preparing to open the c file. So I ended up going with bishop e4, rushing the exchange of these two bishops. On takes, I was just ready to take on d5 first, and then queen takes, and then knight takes, and here I was absolutely fine. And this is actually what happened in the game, so I was very, very happy that this happened in the game, and this looks completely equal. Believe it or not, my king has been to d3, my king has been to d2, my king has been to c1, d2 again, and now it's all okay in this position. I was feeling great, though I have 11 minutes left in this position. My opponent has 33 minutes left, so 3 times more time. Bishop b4, and I have to defend really accurately here. How to defend here on c3, pause the video to solve. Instead of playing rook e3, which is the best move by far, I played knight e2, which defends this just as much, but now you see that my pieces are just less active. My rook is stumped on, my queen does not defend the loose ends, it's just medium. So my opponent goes with queen g2, and this is very interesting. It attacks h2, and I can't really defend it by unveiling my queen, let's say with a knight c1, because then my c-pawn just falls. So it's like a domino effect. My knight's defending the c-pawn, my queen's defending the knight, but my knight cannot be unveiled to defend h2. So what do you play here? The only move that saves, or that doesn't give the pawn, or gives the pawn with compensation, is rook d1, and on queen takes, queen e4. You centralize the queen against the black pieces while attacking this. If they take, though, you have rook d7 here. Absolutely goated, which would threaten mate, and after rook c7 you can have takes, king takes, and then you win the bishop with queen c4 check. So now the bishop is forced back, and now you can have rook d7 anyways, rook c7, and then you can win back the pawn with rook takes f7, brilliant move, rook takes, and then queen e8, and then you would win back the rook with check. Here I played h4, queen f3, now I go with rook c1, just defending, holding on, hodl this position, holding on for dear life. Bishop c4, c5, queen d2, and then rook e8 attacking my knight. Again, I have to play super, super well here. White to play and defend. This is a defensive puzzle for you. Pause the video to solve. And so here, rook c2 is the best move to defend this knight to the absolute limits. But I did not see that. I decided to sack the pawn finally, which is just not the right thing to do. So knight d4, I sack the pawn and I tell myself here I have counterplay with like trials of queen d6, but I don't after rook d8, and my position absolutely collapses in that I do not have compensation for the pawn I gave up on g3. And look, this is a story of my opponent just absolutely outlasting me, and he played well, so cheers to him. I go back with my knight, and yeah, it's just a slow death here. I try my best to consolidate any type of advantage. It really becomes hopeless after some time, and even here, I was ready to resign, but my opponent was doing what he was doing at the beginning of the game, and just getting up after each move. It's very hard to resign when your opponent is not at the board. Like, I don't want to resign to nobody, and so, like, I just ended up playing on more, and yeah, after queen takes d5, I'm down 5 pawns. It's the end of it all. Such a frustrating game. Going from being out-prepped, not being out-prepped, going from being stooped from my prep to then in the Caro-Kann that I chose, being outplayed drastically in the early middle game, to then like failing to some tactics, but then recovering in a miraculous fashion, all to plummet in the very end. Here are the 5 lessons learned from this annoying loss. Think of the aftermath before playing
a move. So just before, right before playing it, 2 or 3 seconds, just think of the long-term aftermath. And this is the f4 case. Here I'm doing f4 for a short-term purpose, to stop, kind of refrain this bishop and queen from being really strong on this diagonal. But in the long term, I didn't think of the aftermath that this carries on this weak e-file now, because this pawn stops defending the bishop that was very firmly placed on e3 and just creates an entire weakness unnecessarily against this e-file. It's really interesting to me how much of a mistake this was, because we see it a few moves later after castles, rook he8, which by the way was played in like 2 seconds. I was so surprised, and now I'm in trouble already. And that segues me in to lesson number 2. Ask for help when in doubt. You guys, I'm gonna ask you, the audience, for help, because I don't know what to do here. I spent 16 minutes on this move, king d2, and really the top engine suggestion is straight up to give a pawn. I don't know why we just give up a pawn here. Maybe king d2 is just that bad, but I'm asking you for help. What should white have done here? I just can't figure it out. I was just too puzzled, and as I said in the game analysis, I tried so many ways to try to defend this weakness, this pawn in this position. King d2 is the best I came up with, and this should happen to you. If you ever have like something that you don't know why it's bad, try to ask for help. Try to ask your buddy, you know, why do you think this move is bad? I think it creates a stronger community in and of itself if we all do that and ask our friends why we messed up. Next lesson learned is look so hard that you find your opponent's tactics for them. In other words, before I play b3 here, I need to look so hard, because it's such a critical game move, that I need to know my opponent's possible move after b3. Not even possible move, possible tactic, and there is. After b3, I need to find this for my opponent, which is hard to find, and my opponent missed it, albeit, but bishop a3 check, which forces king b1, is very easy to look at, and then knight b2, okay, very hard to find, but still, this completely wins for black, and I would have probably resigned on the spot. My rook needs to move here, and then trading here just completely wins. I mean, if I take back with the queen, bishop e4 just pins my queen to my king, and if I take back with the rook, the same thing happens here with a triple pin. Wow, is that rare or what? The lesson I learned from this game number 4 is I looked at this during the game, I loved it, but sadly it didn't work because of b3 check, and this would win a queen after queen c3, defending the queen attack, and then bishop b4 and a very nice pin on queen and king. What I missed here is that I really had a strong intuition for b4. I was very passionate about this move, but I didn't give it enough attention because I just ruled it out. I ruled it out too fast. And here, in fact, I have this miraculous move, taking back the pawn with check that forces the queen to go back. And here I have a really good position with at least a draw here for the white pieces, a bunch of space, and I get out of trouble instantly. So yeah, a really original tip. Give attention to the forcing move that you think is really strong, but that doesn't really seem to work. And finally, number 5 is look at your opponent's threats, however small it is. I weathered the storm in this position. I'm supposed to be amazing here, but I don't overlook it. I look at queen g2, but I just disregard it because it's so minimal compared to the glamorous tactics and the tack that my opponent used to have. And from this, I just nod off. I do h4, and I let my opponent just invade. And I just play like really passive moves here when I have rook d1 with rook d3, and I can just play way better. And I'm just catering to my opponent, playing very subserviently, and eventually just give a pawn out of pure carelessness. And those are the 5 tips of this game.
Thank you so much for watching, and I hope next game is an improvement from this one.